Hello, my name's Peter Fitzpatrick. I'm the Professor of Photography and the Community Engagement Special Advisor here at Columbia College Chicago. I'd like to thank you all for attending tonight's exhibition opening by the 2024-2025 Diane Dammeyer Fellow, Alessandro Bo. Yeah, give it up for Alessandro. The exhibition, curated by Chief Curator and Co-Director of the Pueblo Unido Gallery, Abigail Winograd, presents two bodies of work, About Noon and Walking Practices. About Noon is a project Alessandro has been developing by documenting the Atoyac, I knew I would stumble on that, River and surrounding areas of Oaxaca, Mexico, where he currently lives. Walking Practices focuses on the periphery of Oaxaca and is the result of a collaborative project created by Alessandro with students from Columbia College Chicago and emerging photographers from the Centro Fotografica Manuel Alvarez Bravo, Oaxaca. This collaboration was held in January 2025 as part of the Global Social Practice Study Abroad course. All this activity has been facilitated by a Columbia College Chicago Diane Dammeyer Fellowship in Photographic Arts and Social Issues, in partnership with Pueblo Unido Gallery, Chicago, Centro Romero, and Centro Fotografica Manuel Alvarez Bravo, Oaxaca. Right. I will let Duncan McKenzie, the director of the School of Visual Arts here at Columbia College, Chicago, and founding member of the podcast Bad at Sports, unpack these two projects with Alessandro for you all tonight. But before that, I'd like to thank Diane and Rod Dammeyer for their continued generous support of the Diane Dammeyer Fellowship in Photographic Arts and Social Issues and the Youth Photography Initiative. We are now at 9 fellows, so it's pretty amazing. There are many people here in Chicago and Oaxaca that have contributed to the success of Alessandro's fellowship and resulting projects. It is with deep appreciation that I thank you all. Many of you are mentioned in the publication, Walking Practices, which we produced as well during the project. And that you can get a copy of in the exhibition space. I'd also like to invite you all to the satellite exhibition opening of Walking Practices at Pueblo Unido Gallery tomorrow at noon to continue the celebration of Alessandro and his collaborators' achievements. We're also serving tamales tomorrow for lunch, so that's always a great thing. I really want to thank Alessandro for all the effort that he has put into these projects to actually share his wisdom and skills and thoughts and just sharing Oaxaca with all of us that came from Chicago and all of our audience. So I'm going to now hand it over to Alessandro and Duncan and enjoy the conversation.
Thank you, Peter. That was very kind. Alessandro, I feel like you need to stage Oaxaca for us first. So you're born and educated in Mexico City, and then why Oaxaca?
First of all, I really want to thank, very quickly, Peter already said thank you to everybody, but this has been like a very interesting experience for me. It's been the first time that I show my work outside Mexico individually. And Diane and Rod made this possible. So and they were not only contributing financially, obviously. They also were very interested in the subject and very kind and very open. Peter has been amazing contributor to what happened, and he has been pushing me hard to make it happen, and the students were amazing. I mean, I was really lucky to have 6 students from Oaxaca, which they made very nice match between each other, I think, and I mean that's the main thing for everything for me. They really made it all happen for me. I was very lucky for that. And why Oaxaca?
Well, maybe the first question is, what happened then? Like, you're clearly effusive and excited about what happened. What happened? What was the fellowship?
Yeah. I mean, I arrived to Oaxaca 3 years ago, so I was coming from Ecuador. I stayed there during the pandemic and all that. It was a very interesting time, a shift in my life. And then we just said we are gonna go to Oaxaca because my parents had a 50th anniversary. So we went to the beach in Oaxaca to celebrate that. And we went back on the bus. And we just fell in love. You know, it was a place I always wanted to live. It's a very interesting city, because there is 500 districts. It's divided into 500 districts. It's like a country, you know, and so it's multicultural. It's a very interesting place. Talking about Oaxaca, yeah.
Wait, because I think, I mean, coming from Chicago, like, I have a vision of Mexico City, and Mexico City is this kind of like both amazing and kind of sprawling thing. Oaxaca, I don't know as much about, right? Like, doesn't have a mythology for me, and I kind of wondered about what that was for you. Like, why did you always imagine living there? What is it? Yeah. Also, how does a city subdivide itself into 500 units?
Yeah, I mean, it's a city that, I mean, I don't know how many languages there are spoken, but it's one of the most diverse. Speaking about indigenous community languages, it's the most diverse in Mexico, and I think in the world. I mean, there are so many languages spoken there, and you have mountains, you have the most amazing beaches, very close to Oaxaca City. So you have all sorts of environments. So it's biologically also very diverse. So I mean, it's always been there. I worked there as a for magazines and stuff like that, and I was always very interested to live there. I mean,
it's just a transformative cross section, right? Like that sounds like a magical space.
It is.
So, what was the experience of the fellowship then? What results in About Noon and the walking practice?
I mean, as I say, I arrived 3 years ago, and the first thing for me is to always kind of, go out there. I was interested to go out there and see the real thing, because Oaxaca is, in a way, very touristified place and gentrified city, as many others in the world. But this is very evident and very recent that it has been, expanding. It's very evident, and you can see it. And I was interested to be there. I was interested to do this as a daily practice, as a ritual, and see what was happening, the real thing, not the center, touristified center, which I mean, all the tourists go there. Fair enough. I mean, it's very beautiful. It looks very amazing. I don't criticize that at all, but it's I was interested to see the real kind of situation, because it's a place I'm kind of thinking to maybe inhabit, as you know, put some roots there. And so I was interested to go out to the periphery and walk. And so the first project, which is about noon, I arrived to this city and I was interested to meet the people and see the territory and see the real situation that was happening, and that was it. But then I kind of felt there was something missing, like a link that weaved, like,
I think you can go with whiffed.
yeah, okay.
It missed.
The story, no?
Wove?
Wove.
Wove.
And that was the river. The river for me was very important because it's one of the most polluted rivers in Mexico. And so it's like an agonizing, living thing that is present in the story. Not all the time, but it's there. It's kind of sometimes yes, sometimes no. And so I followed the river. It was interesting because it's not a very nice place in many spots. It was very hard to I mean, they can tell you it wasn't very easy at many stages to be in this place, because it's not an easy situation. It's very polluted and people live in very hard conditions along the river. But I was interested to be there, and I realized how strangely beautiful it is. You can say it's a strange kind of beauty, you know. It's like a sort of paradise if you look at it from far away, you know. But it has this smell, very intense smell, which is present all the time, and which makes a very harsh environment.
So About Noon calls to mind a kind of double narrative, in that, like, there is the narrative of you kind of walking the river, walking that space, and documenting what you kind of experience, but there's each individual narrative along the way, right? So, like, each one of those photos feels like it tells a story, but it's more like it's pregnant with narrative, like it's just about to explode with a story, but the story feels like it's not quite there. And then there's the occasional magical moment that you experience with what sounds like an aggressively polluted river, right? Like, that sounds like that river's not doing great.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's not. I mean.
So what are those stories that you encounter along the way, right? Like, so I guess we join you as a fellow traveler around midday to experience the space. And you get that harsh, washed out midday light. And what do we encounter along the way?
Well, you can have a look.
Right, imagine
no.
you have to describe these things to us.
I mean, I got sick recently because these places are charged with a very harsh energy sometimes, and they can also tell you about it, my students. It wasn't easy at some. I mean, noon is very hard. Like, it has some charge. Like, they some cultures believe it is charged with a very special energy. and some spots are very hard to go through, and I got sick, and I had to do a cleansing, like a real cleansing with plants and stuff, because I was sick. You know, I was something got into me during that time. Yeah, maybe, I don't know.
You think it was the river? You blame the river?
I do. I mean, yeah.
So what's polluting the river in that space, and how does it affect the lives of the people around that river?
I mean, people live there and build houses along the river. There's drugs involved at some stages, and there is always like this smell, and it's a strange feeling at some stages. Like you don't want to stay there at night. But it's beautiful also at some other stages. As I say, there is this beauty. You know, there's this last photo I did was I don't like the main, this one here was the last one I took before becoming sick. And I think this photo describes the whole thing for me. It's strangely beautiful. It has this colorful aspect and reflection, but coming from the dark water, and I think that's why I used it as the main picture, because for me that describes everything. So yeah.
So the other space in both exhibitions is the walking practice space, right? Where you use part of that fellowship to engage the students and take the students through Oaxaca. Tell us about that and how that worked.
So yeah, the first idea was to take them to the mountains, to the indigenous communities, as many other people do. Because, I mean, many people believe this is it's been used many times, and it's kind of overrated in a way, I think, because it's not all about that. I mean, there's this new generation of people that live in the outskirts of the city that, for me, was more interesting, and so there was an open call for students that live in the outskirts between 18 and 23 years old, the same as the students here at Columbia College. So I thought it was gonna be very interesting for them to meet and have this intercultural change.
Yep.
Is that
exchange?
Correct?
Yeah.
Exchange. And I mean, it happened to be very interesting for me. The not the mountains and all that exoticized land. For me, it was more important what I was living close to my place. That was more important for me because I work usually close to where I live. That's yeah. I don't need to go out to work. I work close always. So they worked together really well. They had a lot of things in common, I think, and in many aspects of their life, and it was very enriching. It was very interesting to look at them struggle and not know where they were going. We were divided into 3 groups. I have 2 colleagues that worked with me, Gerardo and Romina. So they were really amazing. They were. We were going for 4 days out to the periphery. We didn't exactly know where, but I mean, part of the practice was to get lost and to just be in the place and not necessarily photograph, but to be in the place and feel the situation and breathe the river and
Which I get a sense is maybe not a thing I want. I'm not sure I want to breathe the river.
yeah, no, but it's part of it. I mean, I didn't want them to just go and photograph, and this is partly why I chose to use plastic cameras, where you don't have to think, you just shoot and
Yeah, like point and
continue.
shoot, but all film, right? They all
It's
shot
all
film.
Yeah. So we had at the end we had like 2,000 pictures to scan and to. I mean, in 12 days sounds a lot, but it was like so quick and so many things to do. You know, we didn't stop for 12 days, and it became into an exhibition there. It became into a book and an exhibition here. So I'm very pleased with the result. It's amazing. We had a little workshop to do collages at my place. So with the pictures we scanned, we did the collages, and it was another layer to it, which became into something very interesting, I think.
Yeah, and that becomes a division in the exhibition, right? Where the About Noon work is straight photography that you're shooting, and then as we move into the walking practice, it becomes the collage work out of the students emulating that practice and then bringing themselves back into it.
Exactly.
Yep. So in that, like, it does, like, even the student work that comes out of that feels like it's really born out of narratives. Like there feels like there's always a kind of remote narrative to it, and we're trying to, like in the exhibition, I don't know that we get a sense of place, or I feel like there is a space that I can identify as Oaxaca, right? Like, but there is a kind of feel, there is that kind of midday sun that kind of boils a body and a civilization. But at each turn, there feels like there's something just about to happen. But I also feel like that ties really well into to your work from before this moment, right? Like that. But I also feel like in that older work, like Smale or Exotica, the narrative plays out, and it feels like it's built a little more than this body of work, which feels like you're really geared towards kind of authentic, but it still plays with that kind of slightly removed narrative.
Yeah.
All right, so you agree. We agree. So what's different when you kind of take on that tact of having to kind of establish a narrative out of the authentic, or those moments that you capture as you walk through a space, versus building and crafting that narrative?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always different for me, talking about Exotica and Smile. As I say, I normally work where I'm living, because like the only work I've done not like this is Galapagos Islands. That was my last work, where I had to go to the island. I mean,
You had to go.
I had to go.
They forced you.
Exactly. No, but I honestly like to work close to where I live, because I relate to the place better, and it feels natural for me to work close anyway. But I think what like between the other works and this one, yeah, this I felt more free to just walk and see what I encountered on this trajectory, following the river. And with the other ones, I planned more. Maybe there was more of a planning, especially Galapagos, because you need permissions and all that, and to get the money to go and stuff like that. And but was much more planning. I have actually sketches and all that for some sessions, for some shootings I did. And this is just more encountering whatever comes next on the daily basis. And the noon thing was actually just like a random coincidence. And I just realized I was always going at noon. And it's the worst time to go out, because it's like really, really hot, and the shadows are horrible. But it became interesting after a while, and I just followed that.
Well, it feels like the most perfect kind of artist thing ever. Like it's about noon. It's when you rolled out of bed, and then you're like, I'm gonna take a walk, and it's hot and it's washed out and the sun is savage, and yeah, the lighting's terrible because you can't get a quality description one way or another, right? Like you're leaning into the fact that but we can feel the light. We can feel the kind of heat and tension of the place through that, right? But I also love that there is that like soft connection to us as artists, but it still feels like there's a story that you're trying to tell in that space, but it doesn't feel like you're controlling it quite the same way. And how do you feel like about that as you investigate place that way? It is weird with these mics, right? Like I really I want to rock out, but I also feel like I have to be delicate. I don't know. And you spin it around like a baton.
Yeah, in this case, always actually, I try to avoid a very easy narrative with my pictures. I like the idea of making the viewer to get their own conclusion in a way, and their own imaginary narrative, and I just don't. I just I just show what I think it's important, for me, and what I feel moved by, and what I think it's necessary for the story to say something.
To unfold. Yeah.
I don't know exactly what, but that's up to the viewer, I guess, in a way.
It's interesting because there is a very there's almost a slight surreal quality to all of them all the time. That it feels like whether it's this work or the older bodies of work, it just feels somehow like there's a poetry to the work that is uncommon in a kind of documentary practice. Right? So like the question for me is like, how, as you step out to capture those things, what are you looking for? And as you tell a story and you control the narrative, or it controls your experience of the thing, what are you looking for in that picture? What makes a good picture? Let the record show that Alessandro has no answers. What do you look for in a picture? Why do you choose that picture and not that other one?
There is always this. In this case, I'm gonna talk about this particular work because
Please.
There is always something different. But I like this idea of a mix between darkness and comedy, not comedy, but I mean, I don't like darkness as such, like pure darkness. I also like to mix it with humor. Like I cannot stay in one side. I go between one another and another all the time. And that's just me. I mean, I'm like that
Well,
in a way.
Maybe I can cite an example. So, like in the current exhibition, there's a photo of an older man who looks like he may be trying to sleep in the shade at about noon. But there's also two figures that we can only see the legs of that are right by him while he's sleeping, and it's unclear what their relationship to him is, right? Like, is he a vagrant and they're trying to shoo him on, or like, did they knock him down into that position? There is an ambiguity to that narrative that results in a kind of funniness that we don't quite know how to balance ourselves as viewer in that space. Is that what you mean in terms of that humor?
Yeah, I mean, I like certain pictures which I sometimes manage to capture, where you don't know if to laugh or to be uncomfortable, or I
Should
mean,
we
those for
sympathize,
me,
or should we-
that's a good picture for me, that you don't really know exactly how to feel about in that sense.
Yeah, because there's another moment right by that in the exhibition where there's an image of a man holding a axe that's painted white, and it looks a little more battle axe than it does a traditional North American wood chopping axe, kind of. And then in front of it, there's a number of beer cases with another white axe, which is a different. And there's an ambiguity between threat or work or labor or an enthusiasm for drink. Like there's all are balanced there, right? Yeah. And that's that same kind of humor where you destabilize us to the point that we're not sure.
Yeah, I mean, this particular picture, I mean, I feel very uneasy about it because, I mean, this guy was walking in the middle of the day with a huge white axe for some reason in the middle of the street, and yeah, I mean, I mean, that's what I look for in the periphery, in the outskirts, because it only happens there. It's a very surreal place, surreal time of the day, where nobody wants to be out, and these sort of things happen, and I am there to share it with you, and
well, and they're pictures on the edge of a thing, right? So like there is a definite tension between the pollution and that kind of crossroads that Oaxaca is, that like this diversity, this gentrification, and then this periphery and the ethic of us as witness and you as witness to these spaces and its relationship to documentary practice. And they don't, for me anyway, they don't feel like a call to action in a kind of political sense, but much more in a poetic, authentic beauty space of these humans, these lives, this space. And I kind of wondered about where you mean to sit us that way.
where I want you to.
Yeah, you're the photographer. You're positioning us, right? Like we're experiencing this through your eye.
I think. I mean,
For the record, those of you listening on radio, it turns out that Alessandro is a cyclops. So when I said your eye, I meant his one eye. It's a very unusual genetic thing, but yeah, it's cool, right?
I mean, this kind of work is, I think, always very political, even if I don't want to touch it, it will always be political. But for me, it's more about getting into this imaginary world that has this documentary. I mean, I use documentary tools. I research a lot, not in this case, because not like Galapagos, for example. I research more on the history, human side, and all that. But in this case, I didn't research a lot. It was more about this imaginary aspect that I wanted to let open to the viewers, because Oaxaca is very surreal, as I say. It has this indigenous vision, which I don't want to necessarily get into, because I don't belong as such. I don't belong in that world. And I think it's also, I don't want to exoticize anything. I want my own kind of narrative and vision and feeling about the place, rather than imposing this exoticized vision of it, which has been used a lot, and which it's very difficult to work as an artist in Oaxaca, because if you get into that, people are kind of tired of that they utilize, like artists utilize this easy, like it's very easy to get into that sort of, I don't know if I explain myself.
No, I think you did. Like,
Yeah.
there's almost a kind of cliche
Cliché,
in
yeah,
leaning
yeah.
into that kind of space, and you want to separate yourself from that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm not from there. I am Mexican, but I don't look like a Mexican. I feel like a Mexican, but you know, it's I don't know where I belong, you know, and that's part of my work. Like, all my work is touching that in an aspect.
It's interesting, because one of the things I was thinking about while you were talking about your relationship with Oaxaca was thinking about seeing it through the students' eyes and seeing it through all of their photographs, those 2,000 images, and how those interactions changed your relationship with Oaxaca, and seeing it through their eyes. And I wondered about that experience for you.
I mean, as I say, the main thing was this interaction between them that made it all worth it. Because there is a certain hate that is happening at the moment, a hatred of local citizens that are tired of tourism, because gentrification aspects, and there is a lot of hatred messages around the center of the city, and I don't want. I mean, with this, my main goal is to make conscious a certain consciousness among young generations, to give it another chance and another. I mean, this is perfect. This interaction was perfect to open conversations, to
So I was thinking about that in terms of the tension between how we as photographers witness things and share them versus how we as educators witness things and share them, and how we open up that experience either as the humans making that picture, or the humans teaching and sharing that space. But I always feel like we are changed through that interaction. And so I wonder, like, post-fellowship, what are you going to bring back to Oaxaca?
I mean, this is an ongoing work, so I will, I think, keep going and keep visiting these spaces, these places. Who knows? I mean,
It's hard to know
I
how
would
you're going to be transformed by a thing, right?
uh,
It was a tricky, and evil question. So my dear colleague, Peter Fitzpatrick, promised that he was going to run around with a microphone for anyone who had questions. And I feel like we're at that point where we get to open it up to audience questions. And I promised Peter that I would try and direct him as far each time as possible. Because, you know, he's wearing a tie. So who has questions?
I'm not a plant, but I wonder if maybe you can talk a little bit about your interactions with people and or whether you interact with people or not. You know, it's also not clear from the photos whether you are engaging your subjects or whether you're just walking and documenting what you see.
I mean, it's always different. Sometimes I snap a shot and I never see them again. I don't even cross a word sometimes. Not because of a special kind of, I mean, and sometimes I visit them, revisit them again. There was this person living in the river, especially him. I visited him like 5 times. There was always drugs involved. So it was a very harsh environment, but he kind of trusted me in a way after a while, and I just listened to him talk a lot. I think he needed to be listened. And yeah, as I say sometimes, or sometimes I plan a shot, I see a place that I really like, and I just see a person that fits into that, and yeah. But I like to interact with people. It's not always necessary, I think, but yeah.
Hi. You spoke a little bit about getting lost in the work, and I'm starting to read Rebecca Solnit's Field Guide to Getting Lost right now, and I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit more about this aspect of like purposefully getting lost and what that does for the work.
Yeah, I didn't really talk about that aspect with the students. I mean, we kind of followed. I don't know if you're familiar with the Surrealists movement on the 60s, 50s, I think. So
The Situationists.
exactly. So there is actions that if you go to POC tomorrow, there is a whole wall with the actions. It's very clear. And we followed some actions with the students. I mean, we just considered them and walked the streets considering them just. And that was very interesting to experience the act of walking as a how do you say this? You know, as a aesthetic practice. Was that your question? More or less going that way? Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Alessandro. So you take photographs of a river that makes you sick, and you trek out to photograph the worst time of day. So I'm interested in the relationship in your work between the creative urge and suffering.
A willful suffering?
Well, I mean, it seems that, you know, discomfort is not unimportant, it seems. So what is there, do you seek it out?
No, thank you for asking that. I mean, it's very important for me, and it's something I realized after some years that it's true. I mean, I somehow need to get into these uncomfortable places. I've had, you know, as a kid, I had very bad dreams, you know, like nightmares, a lot of nightmares, and this dark side, I have to touch it sometimes to I don't know, like to feel alive and to feel grounded. Because otherwise, if I live in this very happy, easy world, that is also possible, I feel dreamy and not grounded. I don't know if that's masochism or.
No, I related completely. Oh wait, did you need the microphone back? I mean, you know, if you're gonna walk in the light, you have to see the dark sometimes.
Yeah.
Who's next?
Okay. Oh, I have a question over here first because
Okay.
I'm following your directions.
Thank you, sir. That's very kind. I appreciate it.
Following that question directly, I'd like to hear a little more about what you find humor in, and if you find it easier to find humor in discomfort.
Easier humor than discomfort, if I find it easier. I mean, yeah, my couple doesn't like my humor, you know. She says it's very bad. It's very dark humor, and not all the people understand my humor. But I like in between, you know. I like to go back to humor, and I don't decide it. I mean, sometimes I see something and it's funny for me, and it might be not funny for others, but yeah.
I feel like, I mean, as a human who adores humor, doesn't there have to be some tension between A and B? That, like, there's got to be some discomfort in humor. Otherwise, the whole world is just dad jokes. As a fellow father.
And also, I mean, a big aspect in my work is that my grandma used to. She's my German grandma, German side grandma. She used to read this very dark humor stories to me, like very cruel stories. You know, Germans are very special on that. And I used to love those stories. I mean, I still read them again and again. But it's very close to my work. Yeah.
Grimm's fairy tales.
Exactly.
About humor, I just want to make one comment that what might be funny for one person isn't necessarily funny for someone else.
It can't be.
Et cetera.
I mean, like, that's the nature of human. It
Right.
it forms an in-group, out-group bias by its very nature as a joke, right?
Right.
But it's also very close to. I mean, humor is very close to sadness. Like, yeah.
Right.
Like.
The question. Oops. Well. Okay. The question that I wanted to ask was, because you interacted with the students from Oaxaca for about 12 days, did you form a bond that you could see them coming to the States for an experience to follow up with your introduction to photography?
Yeah, it would have been amazing to have them here. They were very keen to come. but it's, I mean, we're living very hard times now, politically speaking. I didn't want to talk too much about this political aspect, but it's been touching me a lot these days that I've been here. We're living very hard times now, but they, I mean, these students were very keen to come, and they would have loved to share their own work and talk about it. And there is a video you will see where you will hear them. You will kind of hear their experience with their own voice. So they are here. They're present with us.
Sounds good.
But hopefully someday they can make it, and who knows.
That sounds good.
Okay, this is a question that I hope you can apply to multiple aspects. I know we talked about the political climate. I also kind of want to talk about climate crisis. How do you I know you don't have to get really into it. I'm just curious how you, as a photographer and an artist, balance between documentation and activism.
That's a tough one. I mean, I would like to consider my work in a way touching political aspects. As I say, it's inevitable. But I think my work is not to. I don't feel my work is meant to be so evident in the aspect of I mean, it's necessary to talk about political aspects and to document it in a cold way and news, you know, but that's not my job. I think my job goes into more imaginary places. As I say, I use the documentary tools to investigate sometimes, but I never go further and like to leave the viewer to imagine their own conclusions. Yeah. But there is always something that touches the what we are living in a way. It's inevitable, and but yeah.
Alessandro, I want to thank you on behalf of the college, the Museum of Contemporary Photography, and Chicago for these two great exhibitions. I want to thank the Dameyers for the support of your fellowship here. Thank you for the year you spent with us. Thank you for taking our students to Oaxaca. Thank you to Peter Fitzpatrick for putting it all together. Thank you, friends, and thank you, audience. We did it. Let's have some cookies.
There's also mezcal if you want.